picking up. I think we have some folks. We're going to make sure I want to make sure I record this. Oh, and this will be our last advanced session. We did not skip a week with this. So this will be our last session for summer. So I'm going to kind of cram in some a little more irregulars than I normally would have liked to, but it kind of ties up the loose ends of the preterites and all that good stuff. So we're gonna tie up some loose ends, we hope, with irregular preterites and things that change in meaning and why does that happen. And from there out, it's really more of an issue just of sort of getting used to hearing more examples and practicing more examples, and we'll do more of that come fall when we start back on Wednesdays for fall session. But I do want to start with this. We're going to take a look at sí, cuatro. Actually, we're going to look at 4. Normally, I only like to take 2 a week, but we're going to start with these 2, and these 2 are oddballs because first off, they are preterite, and second off, they do, in some, for querer and for saber, they do change meaning. We've kind of had a few of these that change meaning in that past tense. So, okay. Querer, saber, caber. Caber, you don't need to worry about. Caber means to fit, like inside of something. Conversationally, I don't think that is like one of your super useful verbs, but it's on this list because it has a similar irregular pattern akin to the other 2 that will be more frequent. And the 2 that are more frequent that we're going to look at will be querer and saber, just so that you know what they do. And querer and saber do have definition changes when we use preterite as well. So again, they're going to use these endings with no accent marks to turn them into preterito. But querer is kind of an oddball. It's my 15-year-old students used to be the kissy verb because it was quise. Quise, yeah, kissy. With, any kind of little memory device that helps you remember, because there's so many irregulars and, they're everywhere, and it's disconcerting. So you try to have little prompts, little mnemonic devices that will help you. And this was the kissy verb. So the forms all have quis for a starting stem. So quise, quisiste, quiso, quisimos, quisieron. Okay. Querer, generally, however, we won't use this past tense a lot conversationally, because if you want to say wanted, most of the time it winds up being the imperfecto. Okay, so we're just showing this to you so that hey, this is what it does with the past tense irregular. Okay, and the meaning changes. So quisimos llegar temprano generally won't mean we wanted to arrive early. It's going to mean we tried. Querer in preterito, if it's affirmative, generally means tried to do something, attempted to do something. This preterite will probably be a little more common for querer if it's negative. Because, and you'll see why with the meaning. Quisiste llamarme isn't really going to generally mean, did you want to call me? It's going to mean, did you try to call me? But look at what happens with the negative. The negative, you are maybe likely to hear sometime conversationally, and the negative will be a no in front of that preterite form. No quise, no quisiste, no quiso, no quisimos, no quisieron. Ernesto no quiso verla de nuevo. Ernesto refused to see her again. Querer in preterite, when it's negative, can be kind of common, and it can mean refused. Shut it down. Said not going to do it. Okay, so querer with a no in a negative sense in preterite, you will come across from time to time, and it's going to mean refuse. Los estudiantes no quisieron estudiar doesn't mean that they didn't want to study. It means they refused to study. So querer in preterite with a negative, meaning the no in front of the verb, is going to mean refused to do a certain activity. And that's the way you're most likely to hear it. And saber also has both an irregular form preterito. Saber also has a meaning change, and that one is found out or discovered, meaning that you figured out something for the first time. Okay, so supe, supiste, supo. Sup is our stem that will run through all of these forms for preterito with saber. Supimos, supieron. Okay. Odd forms. And the meaning is going to be found out, not new. Okay. Daniela supo la verdad de su novio. Daniela found out the truth about her boyfriend. Supo la verdad. Because of the nature of preterite being a point in time, we can't really use saber in preterito to translate the idea of new, right? She knew these phone numbers. She knew some kind of information. We need to put saber into imperfecto more to do those. But the found out part, yeah, that is the preterito with saber. ¿Quiénes supieron los resultados del examen? Who found out the test results? Okay, because that's something we can peg. Found out means we can peg it at a specific time in the past. So saber does odd things. And I'll just show you what caber looks like. We're not going to practice that one at all because the context is a little bit difficult. Caber is fitting inside of a container, and you're not conversationally likely to use that a lot. But so that again, it's got this U that comes in. Caber doesn't have a U, but the preterite forms here do, right? Cupe, cupiste, cupo, cupimos, cupieron. So you see what that does. But we'll just leave that as kind of information for you. So saber and querer do kind of have similar kinds of odd changes. They get a U that comes in and steps in. But, the meaning change is kind of more profound for querer and saber. So, you know what? Conversationally, you speaking and using it, you're going to use querer more in imperfecto, way more than you'll ever use it for preterito, because conversationally in an everyday format where you're chit-chatting with people, to say you wanted something is going to mean how you felt. I needed this thing. Gee, I wanted it. And that it really isn't going to use the preterito very much. Okay. Similar with saber, really, you're going to use saber way more in imperfecto. These two verbs, querer, saber, you're going to need them more in imperfecto, which is good because that's the regular form, the predictable quería, querías, quería, or sabía, sabía. They're easy to conjugate, querer and saber, for imperfecto. Easy to conjugate. So it's good for you to know the forms It's good for you to know that they're irregulars, that you can kind of recognize them, but you in speaking are less likely to use querer and preterito. The one thing, however, which is useful to know is that this form of querer, quisieron, this little oddball ellos form is the kind of the root that we use when we take that one word, quisieron, and we turn it into something called a past subjunctive. And the reason we use that is often to make something super polite. So the way that we say, I would like something, like when you're ordering in a restaurant, if you're in a very sit down, formal situation, or if you're in a store where you're speaking with a clerk for a long deal and you say, I would like something. How you translate that in Spanish is really, I would want. And the I would want is built on that word quisieron. But we change the quisieron into quisiera. So that question, quisiera una botella de vino. I would like a bottle of wine, please. It kind of implies the please. The quisiera, the super polite form of querer, is based on that preterite oddball form. So it's helpful for you to know that, these are the forms for preterito, for querer, just because that quisiera word is kind of a common thing in a formal situation if you're asking something in a super polite way. Okay. Bien. Okay. I want to show you two more oddballs, and they're going to fall into a specific group. And we haven't really talked about them, but again, you're not likely to need them conversationally as much, but just so that you know they're out there. And we're taking these so we can fit them all into summer session, because I want to finish it off next week. Two more that we're going to take, and then we're going to get into the practice prompts that I had given you. So here are the two extra, and now actually it's going to be three because there's a third one that has a similar kind of form. So these are often shown as a group because they're irregular in a similar way again. And they are estar and tener, and then kind of as an afterthought, there's andar. Andar has a similar kind of preterite change. And the stems, you're going to see why we group them together. These are grouped together because they, A, are irregular in preterite, and B, they have a similar kind of oddball thing with the stem so that they kind of link together. Ooh, if you know one, you'll know the other. So, okay, estar, to be, tener, to have, andar, to walk. It's a synonym for caminar. Andar can mean walk, or, well, can be used for ride in, like, riding a bike as well. Okay, so again, you're going to see these no accent mark endings, right? The e, iste, o, imos, ieron, those are going to be our irregular preterite endings. But the stem is going to be a UV with these. And tener and estar don't have a UV in them. So this is an odd thing, but we learn them together because they have UV in the stem. So, okay. Just so that you know what these are. You actually, again, conversationally, you're going to need estar more in imperfecto. Realistically, you need it more in imperfecto, but just so that you know, these are common irregular patterns for preterito if you happen to hear it or happen to need it. Estar will have forms like this: estuve, estuviste, estuvo, And again, the V will sound like a B. Remember that. So, you know, it won't sound like a v sound. It'll be a v sound. Estuve, estuviste, estuvo, estuvimos, estuvisteis if you're in Spain, and estuvieron, estuvieron. So we've got the UV for estar. That UV is going to be in the stem again for tener. Tener will get forms like UV, tuve. Tú, tuviste. Él, ella, usted, tuvo. Nosotros, tuvimos. Tuviste is only if you're in Spain, but Latin Americans don't use that. And then we move on to the plural. Sí, ellos, ellas, ustedes tuvieron. Tener, again, gets kind of a twist in what it means with preterite. Tener gets a change in meaning, and it's more like got something or received something. Because again, most of the time, estar, you're usually conversationally going to use the imperfecto, the aba forms, or in tener case, the ia forms. Conversationally, estar and tener will be more commonly used, more frequently used in imperfecto. But again, they follow a similar pattern for preterito, so you see that. But this meaning is different. It's got or received. Like, tenía un perro cuando era niña. I had a dog. If what you mean is I had a dog when I was a kid. Tenía un perro cuando era niña. I had a dog. Okay, not tuve un perro. Tuve un perro changes the meaning to mean I got a dog, meaning when it happened that I acquired this animal as a pet. So again, tener, to use preterito, you need to have a really set in place, point in time, beginning and end kind of situation. And that only really happens with that idea of got or received. So, yeah. Andar gets similar UV endings, just so that you know. Andar is a synonym for caminar. And while caminar is wonderfully regular, and you don't need to worry about any of these, andar, if you're in a region that prefers andar, we'll use these for preterito. Anduve, anduviste, anduvo, anduvimos, and anduvieron. So andar is used for walked or rode if you're on a bike or horse or something like that. So let's see some examples of when this will be used. Andar does not really change the meaning of the verb, okay? But tener really does, and estar even does a little bit. So here are some examples. Mi vecina tuve su primer hijo ayer. My neighbor had her first child. To say, oh, my neighbor had 2 kids would just be mi vecina tenía dos hijos, if she just had those 2 kids. But when you're talking about actually birthing them, that's when we go into tener being a point in time. Mi vecina tuvo su primer hijo. She had her first child, meaning she birthed it. Okay? Because you can peg that to a specific time. But if you're just talking about how many kids she had in general, you switch back into imperfecto. Okay? La familia tenía dos hijos. The family had 2 kids, meaning they always, for all that time, had those kids. When we talk about them being born, you'll hear the tener come into preterito mode. Or tener in this case, tuvimos malas noticias el lunes. We got bad news on Monday. Literally, we had bad news, but we received this news. So tener there, again, pegs when we got that information to a specific time. So we can use preterito in that situation. You're going to hear tener way more in imperfecto than this preterito, but it's good to know the forms for when you hear somebody actually use it in one of these less frequent contexts. Estuve muy mala noche. I was very sick last night, meaning, you know, I got really sick. It was kind of just over the night time. Now it's over with. If somebody really means I was sick only like last night and got over it, done with it, you know, it hit me kind of fast, they might take estar and put it into preterito. Estuve muy mala noche. Okay. But you're more likely here, estar in imperfecto, estaba. Here's another situation where I might take estar and put it into preterito. Luisa estuvo en la oficina a las 3. If I am mentioning a specific time that somebody was someplace, they might, to emphasize that it happened at this time, plug in a preterito form of the verb. So, Luisa estuvo en la oficina a las 3. She was in the office at 3, and now we're really nailing it down to a specific time. If people are just saying without tagging it to a time, sí, Luisa estaba en la oficina. Luisa was at the office. Just that that's where she was. You're more likely here it is, Luisa estaba en la oficina, if we're not pegging it to a specific time. So people are signaling, you know, a specific time by putting in this preterito form of the verb. Andar doesn't really change the meaning. It just makes it, you know, super past. Los niños anduvieron en patineta. The kids rode skateboards. Anduviste al parque. Did you walk to the park? You know, those are just preterite activities. No change in meaning with andar. It's just a matter of recognizing that past tense verb form. That's it. Okay. Bien. ¿Alguna pregunta? Any question before we go to our prompts? Just so that you kind of know they're out there, but you're not as likely to use them speaking as much as you're likely to use, you know, that imperfecto. But it's good for you to know that those are out there. The preterite forms are out there as well. Okay. What I really want to spend some time with here, and because we've got a smaller group, I think we can probably do these all together. I want to spend more time with our prompts, and I'm just going to kind of refresh your memory in case you didn't have time to look at this in the last few days. This page, I wanted to segregate it all off into, these are all going to be things that we naturally need to use in imperfecto. So what we're looking at is, let's practice some verbs that naturally are just going to be imperfecto. Conversationally, that's what they tend to be. And we'll take a look maybe at why. And then we're going to look at a page 2 set of questions that will naturally tend to be used more as preterito. And we'll talk about why. It might be a time cue. It might be just the nature of that verb. It kind of depends on the context of the sentence. So we're segregating our practice to do all imperfecto, right? En la página número 1. All preterito en la página número 2, ¿sí? And then we want to move to, if I want to express this idea, and we're starting with the idea in English, what am I going to choose, preterito or imperfecto, to express this idea? So the hardest leg of this is this very last page. See, en la página número 3. Now you're deciding, wow, which kind of past tense do I need? And how do I plug that in? And I've tried to make that a little easier by telling you, here's the verb you need, and you just decide which tense it will be in, okay? So we'll start with these. Vamos a empezar aquí con el imperfecto en la primera página, over on the first page. Voy a engrandecer esto un poquito. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. Uy. Eso es. Ok, muy bien. ¿Quién era tu mejor amigo cuando tenías 10 años? ¿Quién era tu mejor amigo o tu mejor amiga cuando tenías 10 años? Imperfecto porque es descripción. This is imperfect because it just describes who that person used to be when you were at an age. Whenever we talk about age in the past, it has to be in imperfecto. Okay, ¿cómo se contesta? How would we answer something like this? And some of you are on mute. Diana, if you want to give a go on that, you're on mute. But
mi mejor amiga estaba Jean.
Era Jean.
Era.
Era Jean. Yeah, sí.
And how would you say her name? Or she was called Jean.
Se llamaba.
Same. Well, that same.
Se llamaba. Se llamaba Jean. Sí. Mi mejor amiga era Jean. Now, why can I not say mi mejor amiga estaba Jean? Why will that kind of throw a wrench in the works? Estar is for something changeable, yeah, or location, yeah. And the fact that she was my friend, I'm just identifying who she was. And identifying means that's in the ser camp, not in the estar camp. The ser camp gets identification. So, oh, it was Jean. I'm identifying her. Era Jean. Mi mejor amiga era Jean.
And the fact that you use the imperfecto when you name her, even though it was her name, you still use imperfecto.
Exacto. It would be a very natural thing for you to say, her name was. Se llamaba. You will always hear llamarse in the past used with imperfecto. Always. The only time you hear somebody use a preterito with a name is if you say something like, oh, my daughter named her first child. If they named the child, they put that name on the kid. And actually then they use poner. Le ponía el nombre. So if you name someone, it's kind of like, think of it as if the queen knights somebody. I knight you, Sir Harold. It's an event. Yeah. When your parents name you, that happens one time.
At the moment.
Yeah, at the moment. But forever after that event of saying, I hereby name you Harold. Whenever you say his name was Harold, his name was John, her name was Sandy, Sandra, se llamaba Sandra. ¿Sí? Se llamaba Jorge, se llamaba Juan. Somebody's name will always 100% be imperfecto, because from there on out, It's a description when you're identifying that person, always. I don't know when they started calling him, and I'm not the name police. It's not talking about the event of naming that child. It's talking about that person's name was.
Sí.
Okay. Even if you talk about somebody's nickname, they called him Chuy. Se llamaba Chuy. Yeah. Yeah, that's what it is. So, buena pregunta. Mi mejor amiga se llamaba Linda. Mi mejor amiga era Linda. Pero es importante, it's important that we're going to use era when we name that person, or se llamaba when we name that person, but we won't use estaba, right? I never say, ella está mi amiga. So think of it that way. Is it natural for you to say, she is my friend, as ella está mi amiga? No, you're not used to that. So you're just flipping that verb, meaning ser, not estar, into a past tense. It's a little bit harder to do that in past tense because now you're trying to keep extra conjugations in your head, right? Linda era mi mejor amiga. Bien?
Sí. Sí.
Okay. Bueno. A ver. Vamos a ver aquí, sí. La segunda pregunta. ¿Qué sabía hacer? What did somebody know how to do? What they knew how to do, I can't fit in a box for they started doing it and they stopped. No, because they just knew how. This has got to be imperfecto. ¿Qué sabía hacer tu hijo o tu hija cuando tenía 6 años? Cuando tenía 6 años, por ejemplo, mi hija, cuando tenía 6 años, sabía pintar muy bien. She knew how to paint really well. Sabía dibujar muy bien. She knew how to draw really well. Okay. Drawing isn't something she found out. No, it's something she knew how to do. And we can't peg that in a box with a beginning time and an end time, right? It's what she used to be able to do. And used to has to be imperfecto, okay? Otra idea, a different idea with the same question, con la misma pregunta. ¿Qué sabía hacer tu hijo?
I had, mi hija sabía bailar.
Sabía bailar, perfecto. Sabía bailar. Knew how to dance. Bien. Otra idea.
Mi hija sabía montar en bicicleta.
Sabía montar en bicicleta. Una edad muy normal de aprender a montar en bicicleta. 6 años, una edad muy normal. A really usual kind of age, right? Una edad muy normal. Bueno, sabía montar en bicicleta. Otra idea.
Mi hija patinaba muy bien.
Patinaba. Muy bien. She skated. Now, let's change that a little to say she knew how to skate.
So sabía patinar.
Exacto. Sabía patinar. Sabía patinar en hielo on ice. ¿Sí? En hielo. Sabía patinar. Exacto. Muy bien. Otra idea.
Mi hija sabía leer cuando tenía 6 años.
Otra vez, muy normal. Sabía leer, muy bien. Sabía muy bien leer. Sí, sabía leer. Knew how to read. Exacto. What somebody knew how to do is what they used to be able to do. And we cannot confine that to a single event, right? If they knew how to read, it was for, I don't know, a lot of time, right? we can't confine that into a little box of last week or this 1 year. No, it went on for a very long time, and we don't really know when it started. We don't really know if it ended. Did it end? I don't know. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. It's what they knew. And here comes se llamaba. Here comes se llamaba. ¿Cómo se llamaba tu primera mascota? Tu primera mascota, your first pet. Mi primera mascota se llamaba Skizix. Qué nombre, what a weird name. Mi primera mascota era un perro y mi perro se llamaba Skizix. Okay. Sí.
Mi primera mascota se llamaba Blue Dot, un perro muy pequeño.
Un perro muy pequeño, muy bien. Bueno, otro ejemplo.
Me llamaba mi primera mascota Molly.
Ok, mi primera mascota se llamaba Molly. Se llamaba Molly. Bien. Mi primera mascota se llamaba Molly. Bien. Ok, se llamaba, no matter if it's talking about your dog, your kid, the kids next door, the neighbor down the street. Se llamaba in the past is always his name was, her name was. Because again, it's not logical to say, when did they start having that name? And when did, no, that's not the idea we're communicating. We're communicating that, oh, this person used to be known as. Okay, there's no definite beginning or end point that we can peg on their name was. So you're not going to hear, you will not hear llamarse in preterito. It's not going to happen because that's not a natural progression of time to express that time with the idea of name was. Donde vivían tus abuelos. Donde vivían tus abuelos. Mis abuelos vivían en la ciudad de Grand Rapids, Michigan. Mis abuelos vivían en Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Y mis abuelas vivían en Nueva York.
Perfecto.
Mis abuelos vivían en Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Bien. Sí.
Mis abuelos vivían en Chicago.
Exacto. Muy bien. Otra idea.
Mis abuelos vivían en Ohio.
Bien.
Vivían en Ohio.
Exacto. La idea es, my grandparents used to live. Yeah, my grandparents used to live. Now, why do we have this verb vivir? Wow, can I use that in preterito? Yes, I can, but you'll hear it in preterito pegged with something where you know, again, if you're defining it to a specific time. Okay, por ejemplo. En el año, 1900, en el año 1900, ¿sí? Mis abuelos vivieron en Polonia. If I'm pegging it to a particular year, okay, then the focus is on that year, not just on they used to live. So if I peg it to a particular year, because I want to emphasize, oh, it was in this place at that specific time, then somebody will probably flip vivir into vivieron, preterito, preterite. Okay. But if I don't have if I don't have a time limit and I just mean used to live, I'm going to keep it in imperfecto. Because what I would say in English is, well, they used to live. They lived in this place. But what I really mean behind that idea is they lived there for a long time. And I'm not telling you when it ended or when it began, just they used to live there. Bien?
How exact does kind of that time specificity have to be? Like,
How
as
specific?
you were going through, I was thinking, well, like, you know, in the 80s, I lived in somewhere, not like in 1980 or.
In the 80s, I'd probably limit it to preterito, ¿sí? En los años 80, the way I would say the 80s, en los años 80, viví en Chicago. En los años 80, viví en Chicago. Okay? If I'm pegging it to a specific decade, I'm probably going to, somebody will, when they're speaking to you, they will choose one tense or the other in the past to tell you at the specific time, BB, right? En los años 80, or they're going to choose to not limit it to time. And they're just going to say vivía en Chicago. I could equally say vivía en Chicago. I used to live in Chicago, but I'm not telling you exactly when that was. So if the emphasis is just I used to, vivía, imperfecto. So how can you tell? Well, you can tell the person speaking to you chooses specifically a tense here or a tense there to give you the idea of, oh, I just want to tell you I used to, or, oh, at this specific time, I lived here. They're going to, and they are going to pick a tense based on that. So vivir, it's one of those verbs that can go either way. But if I'm not pegging it to a specific time reference, I'm likely to just pick that vivía. It depends on the idea conveyed by the speaker. When you're listening to them, or when you read a story, people, whoever is writing the story or speaking the story specifically chooses a verb to give you an idea of over and done, preterito, or used to, imperfecto. You can tell by the verb itself. Boom. So in other words, if you wind up reading a newspaper article, let's say, or a magazine article or a story, a novel, immediately just by the tense that somebody chooses, you know, the tense tells you a lot. That person chooses to express that idea, telling you finite, it's got an end and a beginning, or used to. And the tense conveys that all. Harder when you want to speak, harder to get that out as, oh no, now I've got to choose which past tense. That is a harder thing to do. But listening, they're already painting an idea of over and done with preterito, or used to, oh, imperfecto. They're describing things to me. Okay. Bien. Esta idea, this idea here. ¿Qué comida no te gustaba de niño? What kind of food did you not used to like as a kid?
No me gustaba la leche o la pizza,
La
pero ahora me encanta la pizza.
¡Wow! Ok, qué interesante. No me gusta, no me gustaba. Bien. I didn't like, meaning used to like. You know, we're talking about preferences as a kid because it happened a lot when you were a kid. And we don't know how many times. Bien. Okay. Bueno, a mí a mí no me gustaba, a mí no me gustaban las verduras cuando era niña. I didn't like veggies as a kid.
No, no me gustaba comer hígado, liver,
Oh, hígado,
hígado,
hígado.
hígado,
Ugh.
pero mi padre y mi madre
¿Les
se
gustaba?
se gustaba.
Les gusta. Así, lo mismo en mi familia. A mi papá le gustaba mucho el hígado con cebolla. Liver and onions. A mi papá le gustaba muchísimo el hígado con cebollas. A mí no me gustaba el hígado con cebollas. No, no me gustaba cómo olía, how it used to smell. No, nada. Uy, bien, perfecto, perfecto. Ok, ¿qué más?
Cuando era una niña no me gustaban las cebollas.
Bien. No me gustaban las cebollas if I didn't like onions, like plural. Me gustaban, right? That might be me gustaban, right? If it's a plural thing, or me gustaba if it's a singular thing. It depends on the thing. Okay, por ejemplo, espinacas. When we talk about spinach, nobody ever talks about one leaf of spinach. Espinacas is always used as a plural because you eat more than one leaf if you eat it, right? So if I wanted to say I didn't like spinach, there's another thing I didn't like when I was a kid. Sí, cuando era niña, no me gustaban las espinacas. Ahora me encantan las espinacas. Cuando era niña, no me gustaban las espinacas. ¿Bien? Bien, perfecto. Ok, otra idea.
No me gustaba comer frijoles de media lunas.
Oh, black-eyed peas?
Lima beans.
Oh, lima beans. Perdón. Oh.
I tried to figure that out, and media lunas must be the shape, half moon.
Wow. Oh, quizás. Tengo
I
que
couldn't-
buscar esto.
I couldn't figure what that meant until I thought about it for a bit.
Ay, bien. Tengo que buscar eso. Si hay algo así. A ver. Sí, judía de. Oh, Aba de Lima. Wow. I get different, there are going to be various iterations. Judía de Lima, bean of Lima, like, the city, Lima, see? Aba de Lima. Aba is another word for bean. And that other one, I've never heard of that term, so I don't think that's used very much. Es difícil saber. Judía is a general term for bean. Judía de Lima. Judía de Lima. Judía de Lima. Bien. Ok. A ver. Ok. Bueno. Okay. Now, let's take a real quick look. When would I use gustar en preterito? ¿Y por qué? And why? Because the why is important. If I'm talking about when I was a kid, I'm talking about something that used to be for a long time. Yeah. And I'm not mentioning a beginning or an ending point, just how I used to feel. So essentially, you can think of gustar many times as just a description, right? No me gustaba el hígado. I didn't like liver. No me gustaban las espinacas. I didn't like spinach. No me gustaba el betabel. I did not like beets. Okay. And that's what how I used to feel about it. But if you talk about something in the moment, that you just ate and you ask somebody, hey, did you like that? That's not a used to idea anymore. So let's say you go to a restaurant, ¿sí? Que vas a un restaurante y tienes por primera vez un plato de comida cubana. You have a Cuban dish for the first time. You're in a Cuban restaurant, okay? Estás en un restaurante con la comida cubana. Okay, entonces, somebody might ask, ¿te gustó? ¿Te gustó ese plato?
Mhm.
Did you like that dish? And now it won't make sense for them to use te gustaba, because they're not saying, did you used to like it? You just ate it. You just finished. You just cleaned the plate. It is now, they want to know what your reaction was because you finished it. ¿Entienden? Understand that?
Sí.
So, you know, do I use gustaba or do I use gustó? Preterito. Depende. It depends. If I see you just cleaned off your plate, I'm not going to use a used to kind of verb. I'm going to ask, ¿te gustó ese plato? Did you like that dish? Maybe if you liked it, I'll try it next time I come, right? That kind of idea. Entonces, con gustar, depende. With gustar, it depends, right? Gustó or gustaron, preterito, preterite is going to say, ooh, what's your reaction? Because you just did that, right? Did you like it? But if you're talking about some time in the past and it's not a definite time, oh, when you were a kid, when you were young, you're talking about habits that you had in the past. And we have to put it back into that imperfecto, that fuzzy past tense without a definite time period pegged to it. Okay?
So for the question you had up there, if you were answering in preterite, would it be like me le gusta or no me le gusta?
Yeah, okay. So no me gustó ese plato. If I just finished eating something, my reaction might be, I didn't like that plate. No me gustó ese plato porque
Demasiado picante.
sí, era muy picante. Era muy picante. It was really a spicy kind of food. Era muy picante. Era muy salado.
Mhm.
It was really salty. Okay. We're talking about your reaction because you just did it. Oh, por ejemplo, you just get done watching a movie. Okay. And you might say something like, no me gustó. No me gustó esa película. I didn't like that movie. Porque no me gusta la ciencia ficción. I don't like science fiction in general. So you know what? I didn't like that movie. But again, it's asking for your reaction
Mhm.
after you just got done watching.
I was also was trying to give like the real short answer. I didn't like it. So where would you put would you put the le for no me le gusta? Or
I didn't like it, just something you just didn't like, right? And you just got done. Yeah, it's really simple. It's just no me gustó. No me gustó. No me gustó. I didn't like it. And the word it never gets translated, right? They know from gusto, it's it. It's this many things.
Okay.
It's only one. So no me gustó. I didn't like it. No me gustó. And a lot of times it's going to be the answer, right? Somebody served you a coffee and it was some, oh my gosh, they didn't fix it right. They put no milk in it. They put no sugar in it. Ay, no me gustó. I didn't like it. I didn't like it. They didn't really serve it right, right? See? Oh, algo así. So I didn't like it just as a reaction. No me gustó. Right? But if I want to talk about liver, when I was a kid, no me gustaba. I didn't used to like it. Y eso es, and that's it. Okay? Bien? Okay. ¿Qué podías hacer de niño? Que ya no puedes hacer. What did you used to do as a kid that you can't do anymore? Yo podía patinar en hielo cuando era niña y ya no puedo. Ya no puedo. I can't skate anymore. Ya no puedo. ¿Sí? Otra idea. ¿Qué podías hacer?
Podía trepar a un árbol.
Podía atrapar. Pum, 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 pum. Sí, trepar. Trepar es climb, ¿sí? Podía trepar árboles, sí.
Podía tocar guitarra de niño, pero no podía hacer ahora.
Ok, podía tocar la guitarra, sí. Mi hija podía tocar el piano, pero ya no puede. She can't play anymore. Sí puede, pero no recuerda mucho. Ok.
Podía correr muy rápido, pero no, no podía correr nada.
Ya no, not anymore. Ya no, not anymore. Ya no, just not anymore. Bien, bien. Algo más, something else.
Podía montar un caballo.
Podía montar en caballo. Bien, sí. Trum, 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 trum. Ok. Fantástico. ¿Qué más? What else?
No podía saltar a la cuerda.
Saltar a la cuerda, jump rope. Sí, saltar es jump, saltar a la cuerda, jump rope. Sí, bien. Oh, sí, ya no, not anymore, ya no. Ok. ¿A dónde querías viajar? Yo quería viajar a Italia. Yo quería viajar a Italia.
Quería viajar a la Caribbean.
Al Caribe.
A la Caribe.
Al Caribe.
Caribe.
El Caribe es la región. Todas las islas en el Mar Caribe
Okay.
se refiere al Caribe. El Caribe. Bien. ¿Qué más? What else? ¿Nada? Ok. A ver. ¿Qué marcas, brands, qué marcas de carro tenías? ¿Qué marcas de carro tenías?
Tenía carros Chevrolet y Ford.
Bien. Tenía, I had, because, and notice now, the emphasis is just what you used to have. I'm not saying in 2000, I bought that would be un evento, right? Sí, sería un evento y ya no es, ¿sí? Tenía un Chevy y un Ford. Bien, perfecto. ¿Qué más?
Teníamos carros de Toyota y Acura.
Excelente, sí.
tenía Toyota y Honda.
Bien, fantástico. Yo tenía un Oldsmobile, un Nissan, un Pontiac y carros de Ford. Ok. Por ejemplo, pero tenía what you had. What you had, we're not talking about when you bought it. We're just saying you had those things. Imperfecto, siempre. Ok, ¿qué música escuchabas cuando eras joven? What kind of music did you listen to when you were young? And you did this over and over again. So it's descripción, es hábito. It's a habit. Yo escuchaba mucha música R&B y jazz.
Escuchaba de música pop y clásica.
Ah, bien.
Is
Fan-
it escuchaba de?
No, escuchaba.
And just plain
Escuchaba música de,
música
ejemplo. Por ejemplo, escuchaba música de Earth, Wind and Fire, escuchaba música de Marvin Gaye, escuchaba música de Diana Ross, escuchaba, ¿sí? Bien. If you name the person who was the artist, you know, you might say música de, music of, and then whoever did that, whatever group did that. ¿Sí? Ok. ¿Algo más con escuchar que escuchaba? ¿O no? Ok. ¿Qué hacías los fines de semana cuando eras estudiante en la universidad? ¿Qué hacías los fines de semana cuando eras estudiante en la universidad? And we're probably going to take out hacías completely. What did you used to do? And we're going to have to plug in a different verb and not hacías anymore. Okay. Por ejemplo, yo esquiaba. Yo esquiaba. I used to ski. Yo esquiaba los fines de semana en la universidad. Yo esquiaba. I used to ski.
Jugaba muy deportes los fines de semana.
Ok, bien. Bueno, ¿qué más?
Estudiaba mucho en los fines de semana.
Qué buena estudiante, estudiaba. Yo bebía mucha cerveza los fines de semana cuando era. Claro, ¿no? Bebía mucha cerveza los fines de semana. Así es. ¿Ok? ¿Bien? Okay. But you see what happens with these. These either talk about habits. Oh, what you used to have, but you can't really peg it. The emphasis is not on what year, just that you used to have it, right? What you wanted. We can't peg a beginning and an end on what you wanted. Yeah. What you were able to do, what you have the ability to do. Those are all ideas that we have to keep in the past in imperfecto. Conversationally, when you express those kinds of ideas, they're going to stay imperfecto. Here are ideas that are going to flip into preterito because they're going to be pegged to a time or an event, depending on the verb, right? ¿Qué hiciste el domingo? What did you do on Sunday? Cociné un roast beef el domingo. Cociné un roast beef. I cooked a roast beef.
Salí a cenar con mis amigos.
Salí a cenar. I went out to have dinner. Excelente. ¿Qué más?
Vi televisión el domingo.
Bien, ¿sí? Bueno, ¿qué más? So we're talking about something on that particular day of the weekend, el domingo. When we name a specific day, we're pegging it in time pretty definitely. And it's going to be something that was over and done with on that Sunday.
Yo caminé 3 kilómetros.
Caminé 3 kilómetros. I walked 3 kilometers. Bien, perfecto. Okay. El domingo vi por primera vez la nueva serie de Game of Thrones.
Sí, sí,
El
sí.
prequel, prequel, sí. Estrenó el domingo. It came out on Sunday. Okay. Número 2, ¿qué programa viste la semana pasada? ¿Qué programa viste? What show, what program did you see last week? Something you saw last week.
Vi una película de James Bond.
Okay. Excelente. Muy bien. ¿Qué más?
The Body of Proof la semana pasada.
Bien. Okay. Muy bien. So you can see when we're tagging it to a specific time and something that really was beginning on this day, ended on this day, preterito. Last week, we're still talking about a pretty definite time last week. It was one of those days. Maybe I don't remember which day, but it was last week. Okay. B, I saw, right? Ver is a verb that you can conjugate it in imperfecto, but conversationally, not as common in imperfecto, because usually when we talk about that action of seeing something, when you saw it, it's over at some time, right? If I used to watch a program, then I will use imperfecto, yeah. But just chit-chatting with somebody in the family, hey, I just saw this last night. Ver is more common in a conversational context to be in this preterito when you talk about the past. It just is, right? It's something that happened and it's over with. Comer, unless I'm talking about what I used to eat over and over and over again, very likely to be in preterito, right? ¿Qué comida chatarra comiste este fin de semana?
Papas fritas.
Comí crispetas de tortilla. I ate some tortilla chips. Comí crispetas de tortilla este fin de semana.
No comí nada. Comí chatarra este fin de semana.
Wow, qué disciplina.
Sí, sí.
Eres la mejor. You are the best. Ay,
Gracias.
okay. Bueno, ¿qué más? ¿Qué más?
Comí papas fritas.
Papas fritas, sí.
Yo también.
Papas fritas, sí. Sí, papas fritas quizás no son exactamente comida chatarra, pero sí, no son muy saludables. They're not super healthy, right? Sí, pero así es. Ok. ¿A qué hora te levantaste esta mañana? ¿A qué hora te levantaste? Me levanté a las 5 de la mañana. Me levanté a las 5.
Me levanté a las 4.
¡Ay! ¡Wow! ¡Oh! ¡Qué pena! A las 4. ¡Wow! Ok.
No me gustó.
And I didn't like it. No me gustó. No me gustó. You're talking about that one event, right? And how I felt about that? No me gustó. Así es. That's exactly when y no me gustó. And I really didn't like it. Okay. ¿A dónde fuiste el martes? ¿A dónde fuiste el martes?
El martes fui a la tienda del Marcos. And I hope that my translation thing was right. Del Marcos frame, I'm trying to say I went to a frame shop.
Oh. Uy. No sé
Yeah.
exactamente. No sé exactamente. I don't know there, but as long as you get your fui in there. See? Fui. Fui al supermercado. Fui with an A. Fui with an A and then your place. See? El lugar. See? Fui al taller. I went to the shop. Yeah. You know, any place where they fix something, you can usually just like you had a car repair of some kind. Al taller. Taller is a shop where they fix stuff up. So it's a real kind of all-purpose kind of word. Fui al taller, fui al supermercado, etcétera, ¿sí? Fui a la casa de mi amigo. Ok. Fui al parque. Ok. ¿Cuál fue la última vez? What was the last time? And the last time means I'm putting it in a box, right? ¿Cuál fue la última vez que manejaste en la autopista 202? When was the last time you drove on the 202? Para mí it was, and I don't need an it. Para mí fue hace 2 meses. It was 2 weeks ago. Fue hace 2 meses. It was 2 weeks ago. Hace 2 meses.
Para mí fue en marzo.
Fue en marzo. It was in March. Sí, sí, porque ahora estás en Illinois. Exacto. Bien. For some of you, it might be yesterday. Sí, ayer. Okay. And here we've got a good gustar. ¿Te gustó? ¿Te gustó la última película de Marvel? A mí no me gustó tanto, not so much, tanto, no tanto, not so much. A mí no me gustó. So this one you can really shorten to no me gustó or sí me gustó. And boom, you're done with it, right? Maybe you hate maybe you don't even know what a Marvel movie is. No me importa. Doesn't matter to me. I don't care. No me importa. Bien. Okay. ¿Con quién hablaste por teléfono? Who'd you talk with on the phone? Yo hablé con la oficina del veterinario ayer.
Mm.
Yo hablé con...
Hablé con mi hija.
Perfecto. Sí, hablé con mi hija. Hablé con mi hija.
Hablé con mi cliente.
Bien, perfecto. Sí, hablé con mi cliente. I talked with my customer, my client. Exacto.
Hablé con mi cuñada.
Exacto. Sí, sister-in-law, hablé con mi cuñada. Perfecto. Perfecto. Ok. ¿Qué pudiste arreglar en casa en los últimos meses? What did you manage to fix? Meaning you tried and you actually fixed it. Yo pude arreglar el grifo, faucet. Yo pude arreglar el grifo en casa. No me gustó, pero pude arreglar el grifo. I didn't like it, but I did it.
Pude arreglar el calentador de agua.
Bien. Muy bien. Water heater. Uy. Ok. Complicado. Ok. ¿Qué más?
Pude arreglar.
Oh.
Sí.
Diana.
Arreglé un ventilador de cielo.
Ah, el ventilador en el techo, on the ceiling. Ah, bien. Ok.
You say techo?
En el techo. En el techo, sí. Ah, bueno, Pat, ¿tienes algo?
¿Pude arreglar el lavaplatos?
Sí, pude arreglar el lavaplatos. Dishwasher. Uy, qué difícil. Sí,
Yes.
exacto. Muy bien. Ok. Bueno, ok. ¿A dónde viajaste? Desde, and now I'm pegging it into a decade. ¿A dónde viajaste desde 2010 hasta 2020? So in that 10-year period.
Viaje a muchos lugares de Europa.
Exacto. Sí, viajé a muchos lugares de Europa. Bien.
Viaje a Vietnam y Tailandia.
En Asia, muy exótico. Muy bien. Bueno, ¿qué más? ¿Algo más o no?
Viajé a Arizona muchas veces.
Muchas veces, many times. Okay, bien. Okay, let's move on. Now, this is the hardest part. So let's take a real good look at this. ¿Cómo se expresan? I have to think about, we need to make a decision, right? When somebody talks at you, they pick preterito to peg it at a time, or they pick imperfecto for what you used to have or description, right? But if you want to ask somebody, when did you get home? When did you get home? Okay, get home is arrive, llegar. So we know we need to use llegar. And if somebody wants to ask, when did you get home? Okay, we need that interrogative cuando. Cuando. Now, what do you think this needs to be? Imperfecto or preterito? What are we going to do with llegar?
Preterito.
Preterito, muy bien. ¿Y por qué? And why?
Because it's asking for a specific period.
Yeah, okay, sí, exacto. Muy bien, muy bien. Exacto. So, what time you got to a place, the meaning of that verb, got to a place, it's not something you used to do, right? It's like when you got there. Okay, so that's going to be pegged at time. So how would you put that in a tu form? ¿Cuándo?
Yes, speaking.
Llegaste.
Exacto, muy bien.
Right.
Fantástico. Cuando llegaste a casa, después de las vacaciones. Bien.
Why not?
Excelente. And now we're going to need hacer twice.
Oh, you gotta be
Once
kidding me.
as just by itself and one with hacer calor, right? So we need, what did you used to do when it was really hot? That's all going to be descriptions. So what are we going to do with hacer in these two clauses?
Imperfecto.
Imperfecto, okay? What did you used to do becomes
Que hacías.
Well, I guess they're not gonna
Okay.
make whatever they would have made on that autograph.
que hacías cuando it
Hacía
was. Hacía.
calor.
Hacía y probable que sí, hacía mucho calor, ¿no? Sí, que hacías cuando hacía mucho calor, and we happen to need
All right,
hacer
well,
twice, once for the used to do and one for it was really hot. See? Exacto. Okay. I always like science fiction movies.
Preterito.
Imperfecto.
Imperfecto. ¿Y por qué? And why?
It's something you used to like over a long period of time. We don't know what it is.
Right. And this idea of always signals repetition. Yeah. Always signals something happened a lot. So, entonces, gustar. We need to use gustar. Sí, es imperfecto. I always liked it becomes siempre.
Me gustaba.
Me gustaba. Or, and here it has to be gustaban because it's got to be películas
Mhm.
de ciencia ficción. Bien, ¿ok? Siempre me gustaban las películas, perdón, las películas. We need a las because it's a category. Siempre me gustaban las películas de ciencia ficción. We do need our las there. Okay, we're talking about a category of a certain kind of movie. All movies that fall into that category of science fiction. So we do need the las. Me gustaban las películas de ciencia ficción. I could read without glasses when I was little.
Imperfecto.
Perfecto.
Imperfecto. We're talking about when I was a kid. Okay, I could.
Podía.
Podía. Podía leer sin
Lentes.
lentes o sin gafas. Sin lentes, sin gafas, right? Which word they use for eyeglasses depends on which region you're in. Some places like one more than the other. Podía leer sin lentes, podía leer sin gafas cuando, when I was little.
Cuando era niña.
Cuando era niña. Cuando era niña, cuando era niño. Bien. Pequeño, pequeña, you can substitute that word instead of niño. See, okay. I couldn't read that paper. It's written in German. I couldn't read it. And did it happen if I couldn't read it? Did it happen?
Mm-mm.
This is a hard one. And
Preterito.
it's written as easy. That's in present. But I couldn't read that paper. Is it implying just the ability or that it didn't happen?
It didn't.
Ability.
It didn't happen, right? Okay. So we're going to take poder and it's a very irregular. We're going to say no pude leer ese periódico. Está escrito en alemán. Bien, okay. No pude leer. I didn't manage to get it done. Not even just that I had the ability, it didn't happen at all. So, no pude leer ese libro. Okay. We didn't know anybody at the party. Oh, we've got to use conocer because conocer is for knowing people. We didn't know anybody. Do we want imperfecto or preterito?
I think preterito. but I'm not
Okay,
sure.
and why do you think preterito? Because a party happened maybe last night?
It's at the party is a specific event.
It's a specific event. Okay, but let's focus. This is a hard one. We didn't know anybody. Are we talking about meeting somebody for the first time? Or we just didn't know the people?
I think we didn't know the people.
We didn't know the people. For something like this is going to be imperfecto. Conocer in preterito gets us very specific meaning. Conocer in preterito means met for the first time. So if I just walk in and I see faces I don't know, I'm saying, oh my gosh, I didn't know anybody. That's going to be imperfecto. Imperfecto. No conocía. No conocía a nadie en la fiesta. if you didn't know, if you did know somebody, or if you didn't know somebody, that is talking about a mental process in the past. Conocer in preterito becomes extremely specific. It means met for the very first time.
So then it's nos conociamos.
Conociamos.
Okay. Por ejemplo, if I want to say I met a lot of people, then it becomes conocí, pretérito. Conocí a mucha gente anoche. I met a lot of people last night. Conocí a mucha gente. But conocía a mucha gente has a very different meaning. It means I knew lots of people. I knew lots of people. Conocía a mucha gente. I knew a lot of people. No conocía a mucha gente. I didn't know a whole lot of people. But conocer with pretérito becomes met and meaning never saw him before. First time.
Understood, but I think we're confused with the we didn't know.
Oh, perdón. I didn't read that.
Conociamos.
No. Oh, perdón. La culpa
Okay.
es mía. The fault is mine. No conocíamos, perdón. No conocí, sí. Oui, gracias. I didn't read my own sentence very well. We didn't know. Okay. No conocíamos a nadie. Conocimos a mucha gente. It now means we met.
Sí.
Right? Okay. So conocer, pretérito, met, very specifically. Did you meet your daughter's boyfriend? Meaning you never knew him before. It was an introduction situation.
So that's preterito.
It's got to be pretérito. Sí. So what do we do with that? Did you meet? We take conocer, we do pretérito, we do tú.
So
Conociste.
Exacto. Conociste al novio de tu hija. ¿Conociste al novio de tu hija? ¿Conociste al novio de tu hija? Did you meet the boyfriend of your daughter? Because that's the way we have to phrase it, right? Eso es. Okay. I didn't have my credit card. Imperfecto or pretérito? ¿Cuál?
Imperfecto.
perfecto.
Imperfecto. 90% of the time when you want to use tener in the past, it's going to be imperfecto. What I had, or in this case, even if it's negative, what I didn't have, I'm not really pinning it to a time. I'm just saying I didn't have it. No. ¿Cómo se expresa? Yo no. Sí, yo no
Tenía.
Tenía.
tenía mi tarjeta de crédito. Bien. Okay. Oh, the guy I talked with, he didn't know anything.
Perfecto.
And we're talking about two different things. So let's look at the hablar first, the guy I talked with.
So that's
Did I, and then it was done? Or is it used to talk?
It happened one time.
It's the guy I talked with. See? El hombre, let's just call him hombre. El hombre con quien hablé, the guy I talked with. Okay, he didn't know anything. Are we talking found out, saber, or knew, saber?
New.
New.
New. So if it can't be found out, it's got to be
Super.
imperfecto. He didn't know anything. No,
Sabía.
let's make it a little more. Él no sabía nada. No sabía nada. Él no sabía nada. Bien. Él no sabía nada. He didn't know anything. Didn't know, usually imperfecto. The only way I can really flip saber into preterito is found out, found out, found out. And if what you mean is new or didn't know, it's got to be imperfecto. A sabía form. Okay. Oh, my first house was in Chicago. Preterito or imperfecto? Do we have a time anywhere here, really?
Imperfecto.
Imperfecto. I know it was your first house and you may be pegging it in your mind, but you know, first house by itself just doesn't mean we're boxing it into a time yet. So, mi primera casa estaba en Chicago. Mi primera casa estaba en Chicago. Was in, location. It used to be in, right? And we're not pegging it to a time, or you're not saying this person was at my house during this month. No, there's nothing here pegging it to a time, just that something was in a certain place. It used to be in that place. Mi primera casa estaba en Chicago. Bien, boom. Okay? Vale? Okay? This is something, it is a process. It totally is a process that takes a lot of time. So if you feel like it is tough to kind of step through that and get used to it, you are right. If you think that you can do all these perfectly right now, I give you a great big Mensa medal for being the smartest person ever, because you have to really hear a lot of examples, read a lot of examples, make a lot of examples to get used to this. So this is a process that will really take quite a long time. If you feel like it is still a little bit tough, that's about where you ought to be. Okay. All you can do is get used to the different forms so that you kind of know the curveballs somebody throws to you if they're talking to you off the cuff, right? I hoped you could understand most of the story about the guy who met the girl on the train. Did you listen to that? Yeah. If you didn't listen to that, oh, that is such a cute, it's the cutest story. It's just drop dead cute story. But go and listen to it again, because, you know, note when you listen another time, you'll be listening for, he's describing what she was doing at that time versus what happened. Oh, her parents came and took her away. That's an event. But, you know, she was looking at me. She turned. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. She turned to me, might just be preterite, but she kept turning back to me, might be imperfecto. So listen to that again, because it's got some very nice little nuances. So listen, they're going to plug in preterito when it's over with, over with, over with. It's the kind of story where they plug in description, right? Imperfecto when it's description, what was happening in the background. I am going to give you an extra little story to read, because now we've got a couple of weeks off. And this story is going to mix some present and past, some present and past. So you're going to have some presente, you're going to have some preterito, you're going to have some imperfecto. It is a story about siesta, the siesta. And it's actually a little less complicated. It will go a little bit slower than the Love on a Train, yeah, kind of story. Flirting on a Train, it'll be a briefer one, but it'll be a cute little story to watch and listen for. People are going to cue in. They're going to give you a feel for how that action flowed along, depending on preterito, boom, 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 and description imperfecto. And then they're going to flip back into presente, some of the story too. Okay, bien?
Hey, Marilyn,
Sí.
I just wanted to say two things. I think everyone else would agree with this. First, you were right that past tense takes a long time to kind of get the hang of it or to be at all good at it, which I'll say I'm not yet. So that's cool. But also
That is, yeah.
that I think we all want to thank you for giving us this extra session, the advanced session.
Yes.
Gracias a ustedes. Thanks to you. De nada, de nada. Fue un placer. It was a pleasure. I enjoy that. It is something that you have to step through little by little, poco a poco. You need to do more. You have to like come back and revisit it again and revisit it again and review it again. That is the only way it becomes natural. It's just not the kind of thing that can be rushed. Pero de nada. You're very, very welcome. And we'll do more of this in the fall. If you guys want to continue doing more past in the fall. But see, now that you've got a little under your belts, for fall, the focus is going to be more on just more stories and little things you start to put together. Stories that you hear, stories that you read, stories that you put together yourself. So it'll be more just, okay, now we have some tools in the tool belt. Yeah. And we can plug in these ideas, but stories you tell are going to be very brief and very focused so that you can distinguish, which tense am I going to need? What you need depends on the idea you want to convey. See? Así es. And that's just the way it works. Wouldn't it be nice if you wave a wand and it's all like, yeah, super obvious, muy obvio. Y no lo es, and it's not. It is not super obvious. It is something you have to, it's like dipping your toe in the super hot bathtub. And you got to get used to it. Okay. Así es. Okay, bien. We won't do an extra session, the advanced session next week, but we will do the Monday session for our July 4th makeup. Bien? Todo bien? Excelente. And I'll still give you a little story with some past so that you can kind of savor that and pull that apart. Okay, todo bien.